Welcome. This is TLC, and today I'm going to be looking and kind of continuing on my little series here of going through the different classes of D&D 5e, and just kind of giving my opinion on the tier list. Just kind of ranking them from worst to best, based on a number of features here, which we will talk about in just a second. Today we're going to be looking at the Druid. One of my favorite classes, one of what is, in my opinion, one of the cooler classes, one of the more creative ones. And yeah, I'm excited to get started. So let's just go ahead and get right on into it here. So my tier list, all right, hasn't changed. F tier is still unplayable, which isn't to say that it's so god awful that you're gonna hate every second of your life, but it does mean that, hey, no matter what the situation is, no matter where you find yourself, you are going to be the worst possible subclass for what you are intending on doing. Which in my mind means, for me, as a power gamer, I am unplayable. D tier, that means extremely situational. The best case you can ever hope for is just that one-time case where, the reason you chose this subclass happens, and then as soon as that situation passes, it's all over. C tier means it is still situational, but mediocrity is possible, which is just a nice way of saying that, hey, sometimes you're good, most of the time you're just baseline, like, you're not really helping, but I guess you're not really hurting. Your effects aren't like causing you to lose. So hey, average, right? All right, B tier. This is a good choice, but maybe there is something lacking. So maybe there's just something about this class that just doesn't fit well, or it's missing something that would maybe have bumped it up better, etc., or has some kind, of situational quality. There's one class in here in particular that I think really kind of reveals this. A tier, solid choice. All right, this is the class in which you cannot go wrong. Any of these would be fantastic choices for you. And S tier is, of course, the best choice. All right, this is, in my opinion, what would make the absolute best, in this case, Druid. All right, F tier, there is none, thankfully. All right, unlike, say, the Cleric, this is a class that just being a Druid alone, between your wild shapes, between your spells, between, some of the other features, you cannot go wrong. Even the worst subclass of Druid aren't half bad, thankfully. For D tier, also none. This is one of those, classes in which, again, even the worst ones will at least come out to be pretty average. Druid is, in my opinion, one of the more powerful pure casters. The fact that they get armor, for how light it may be, they at least get it. But just being able to wild shape, and their spell list is phenomenal. They have so much stuff going for them that even the worst subclasses are not F tier and they are not D tier. So, hey, good on you. All right, so let's actually get this kicked off here. All right, let's actually get into it, starting with the Spore Druid at C tier. In terms of its spells, this is one of the few times where you actually get a cantrip out of the gate as one of your free spells. That's usually pretty rare. Most of the time, your extended spell list is first spell slot or higher. Not that it's that big of a deal. Chill Touch isn't bad, but it's not great either. Pretty mediocre. The rest of the spells, I don't think a single one of those spells, besides maybe one or two, any Druid can get. And again, in my opinion, an extended spell list should be a list of spells that your particular subclass gets that no other Druid really gets have the ability to get their hands on. The fact that so many of these are just basic Druid spells, Alright, so let's get started. Halo of Spores. Starting at second level, you are surrounded by invisible necrotic spores that are harmless until you unleash them. When a creature you can see moves into a space within 10 feet of you or starts his turn there, you can use your reaction to deal 1d4 necrotic damage to that creature unless it succeeds on a Constitution saving throw against your spell save DC. The necrotic damage then scales, 1d6 at 6th, 1d8 at 10th, 1d10 at 14th. This is a pinprick. That's all this is. This is like a little... I'm not going to say it sucks, because one, it does give you at least some sense to use your reaction, which since druids usually do not have reaction spells, like say counterspell unlocked to them, this is nice to be able to throw out, as a reaction. You get to do a little bit of extra damage. The problem is this: one, the die is so small. 1d4, from levels 1 through 5 is just, that's a dagger, right? Like that's literally an offhanded bonus action dagger, and that's it. And the fact that it is reliant on a Constitution saving throw, which I've said this in a previous video, most monstrosities, at least, they're proficient in them. They're good at them. So odds are I'm going to find that unless you're fighting a lot of just basic humanoids, this effect is either going to be so minuscule it's not going to be very beneficial. It's not going to make that big of a difference. You doing an average of 2 points of damage as a reaction is not crazy, especially that there are classes out there, like say the Desert Barbarian, Desert Storm Barbarian, that can just do 2 points of damage guaranteed every turn and not have to use anything. Yeah, no, I'm going to find that this ability is not going to be used often. Symbiotic Entity, also at second level, gaining the ability to channel your magic into your spores. As an action, you can expand use of Wild Shape to awaken those spores. Rather than transforming into a beast, you gain 4 temp HP for each level you have in this class. While this feature is active, you gain the following benefits. When you deal your Halo of Spores damage, roll the damage die a second time and add it to the total. Your melee weapon deals an extra 1d6 necrotic damage to any target they hit. These benefits last for 10 minutes until you lose all temp HP or until you use your Wild Shape again. This sounds really, really good, and I'll admit, this is decent. This is a good little ability. This is a solid ability, but I have 2 problems with it. One, this is basically forcing you to become a frontline druid, which, I guess if you enjoy that kind of thing, fantastic. The second thing is that, to me, this is a druid that the only reason you would go into this druid is if you are planning on doing the whole druid barbarian, crazy tank build where you're just like, I'm going to wild shape and rage and have my symbiotic ability going and be this giant monster that's, 500 hit points and resistant to it and yada, yada, yada. Like, don't get me wrong. This could make like a bear totem barbarian druid build a monster. But because you would get to use your reaction to do some extra damage. You get a little bit of HP, temp HP. It forces you to go down a certain play style, and I'm not a fan of that. I like when abilities are like, hey, here's an ability that no matter really where you're planning on going, this could be really beneficial to you. Or it says, hey, here's 2 or 3 avenues of play for you. This one is like, yeah, if you take this druid, you're going into melee. Otherwise, none of this is really that effective. Secondly, it uses your Wild Shape. I just, you can only use your Wild Shape like 2 times for most of tier 1. I think 3 times tier 2. Like this it's not, I don't know. It's good, but again, this is one of those abilities where you have to put yourself into context. And as soon as you realize, like, okay, what would my character look like using this ability? Unless you're planning on going a melee frontline, kind of druid, then these abilities you either barely use or won't use at all. At 6th level, your spores gain the ability to infest a corpse and animate it. If a beast or humanoid that is smaller or medium dies within 10 feet, you can use your reaction to animate it, causing it to stand up immediately with 1 hit point. The creature uses the zombie stab block. It remains animated for 1 hour, after which time it collapses and dies. In combat, the zombie's turn comes immediately after yours. It obeys your mental commands, and the only action it can take is the attack action, making 1 melee attack. You can use this feature a number of times with your wisdom modifier, and you regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. This is okay. It's cool. Like it's an interesting ability. It's a creative ability to give a druid. Here's why this is a C, maybe B tier thing. 1, the beast or humanoid needs to have died within 10 feet of you. 2, you have to immediately use your reaction to animate it, which means that your Halo of Spores ability isn't going to happen. So, now we have competing abilities, which I'm not a fan of. I don't like it when it's like, here's all these really cool abilities. Now choose which one you want to use, because they all use the same pool of resource, whatever. And lastly is that it has 1 hit point. It has 1 hit point. I mean, you know, I feel like you're gonna spend your turn and your reaction to make something wake up with 1 hit point, and then the big bad is just, and the fact that it's a zombie stat block means like a lot of big bads, like they're just not gonna care. They're just gonna leave it alone. Like, what are you gonna do? 1d6 plus 1 damage, and that's with like a +2 to hit. Like, I mean, odds are you're gonna miss. Like, why would I even care? And you have 1 HP. I don't know. It's an interesting ability. I just wish they would have given a little bit more time and a little bit more meat, I guess, into what it did. But I digress. All right, spreading spores. At 10th level, you gain the ability to seed an area with deadly spores. As a bonus action, while your symbiotic entity feature is active, you can hurl spores up to 30 feet away, where they swirl in a 10-foot cube for 1 minute. The spores disappear early if you use this feature again, if you dismiss them as a bonus action, or if your symbiotic entity feature is no longer active. Whenever a creature moves into the cube or starts its turn there, the creature takes your Hail of Spores damage unless that creature succeeds on the Constitution save throw against your spell save DC. A creature that takes this damage, a creature can take this damage no more than once per turn. While the cube of spores persists, you can't use your Hail of Spores. This is literally, hey, instead of using it on myself, I throw it out there and someone else gets hit by it. I'm giving this a 30-foot range. It's 10 foot. It's a 10-foot cube. It's not 10-foot radius, 10-foot cube. So it's literally, hey, I'm going to, use a bonus action here to hurl my thing 10 feet away. It's nice that it's a bonus action. So it's nice that, this could give a druid a bonus action if they, maybe are a little bonus action light, and missing out on things. But, see, and this is the problem. This is why, to me, the Spore Druid is in C tier, is because I have to keep coming up with, okay, well, maybe if they're in this situation, maybe if they were here, then this could be beneficial, compared to other abilities where it's like, I read it, and then immediately there's this connection of, wow, that's a really good ability. I can imagine, 10 times, 10 places where that would have been really cool and really effective. These, it's like, I have to get really picky and choosy. I have to oh, maybe if this happened, maybe if this occurred, then this could be useful. This is why this is in C tier. All right, let's look at our 14th, our capstone. Fungal body. The fungal spores in your body alter you. I can no longer be blinded, deafened, frightened, or poisoned, and any critical hit against you counts as a normal hit, unless you're incapacitated. It's like someone wrote the first sentence, left it there, and then someone else came by later as this book was about to get published and was like, oh, this really sucks as a capstone. And then they just quickly wrote in, and any critical hit against you counts as normal hit. Because this doesn't make any sense to me. Like, blinded, deafened, frightened, poisoned. So those are all conditions. And then all of a sudden in the end, they're like, oh, by the way, crits also don't hit you anymore. If it wasn't for that last sentence, this sucks. But I will say, to never have to worry about being a crit, to be critted on again, this is cool. This is a good ability. This is an interesting ability. But again, I go back to that whole, the only time any of this is really that effective is if you're out in melee. And the fact that this makes, to me, this would force me to be a melee-based druid. It's C tier. This to me is why the Spore Druid is a C tier druid. It is forcing you, the player, to have to go down a certain path, and I don't like that. No, thank you. Going into B tier, we have the Wildfire Druid. I really wanted to like this class. I really did, and there is one case where I'll pitch it where this could maybe be convinced to be an A tier, B plus tier class. But again, whenever I have to do that, it makes me immediately go, well, it can't be A tier because I'm having to come up with situations for it. So it's B tier for me. All right. Now, in terms of spells, this is what I like. I'm loving what I'm seeing. We got spells here that are not usually given to druids normally. So we got Scorching Ray, all right, we got Flame Strike, we got Fire Shield, which I'm pretty sure they don't usually get to use, Burning Hands. I'm loving it. Why the fuck do I not get Fireball? Come on, Wizards of the Coast, you drop the ball, all right? Give me fucking Fireball. If I would have seen Fireball, this 100% would have been an A tier class, 100%. Like, how in the fuck can you give me Flame Strike but not give me Fireball? That you give me every other one, but you don't give me Fireball. I don't know. That just pissed me off. All right. So, summon Wildfire. At second level, you can summon the Primal Spirit bound to your soul. As an action, you can expand one use of your wild shape feature to summon your wildlife spirit rather than assuming a beast form. The spirit appears in non-space of your choice that you can see within 30 feet of you. Each creature within 10 feet have to make a dexterity saving throw or take 2d6 fire damage. There is more to this I do not have on screen. It gives you a stat block for this creature, which isn't half bad. It's actually a decent little a stat block for this entity that you create, and a couple of options for you to choose from. It's cool. It's interesting. I think thematically, this sounds really awesome. I love the idea of being a wildfire druid and having like a little, fiery, wolf pup, or fox, or if you've watched Critical Role, newest campaign, a monkey for that instance. That's cool. I'm not a fan that it takes my wild shape. I wish that it was more of either proficiency bonus, benefited, like, hey, you can use this up to, your proficiency bonus or something like that. But it's not bad. The fact that when I summon it, I can make it summon next to somebody and do damage. My only problem with that, maybe this is something I would talk to my DM for, is I wish that there'd be something where it's like, hey, because for me, I imagine like, in very kind of Critical Role style, like if I had, I would like my wildfire spirit to accompany me. I would like them to be something that like is with me most of the time. So to be honest, so I would maybe ask the DM like, hey, can I make it to where they're with me most of the time, but then using this ability, can I summon it somewhere else, getting that fire damage and yada, yada, yada. I don't know. I would maybe ask that, but it's a cool ability, and I like what they were trying to do here. 6th level, the bond with your wildfire spirit enhances your destructive and restorative spells. Whenever you cast a spell that deals fire damage or restores hit points, while your wildfire spirit is summoned, so as long as it's somewhere, you can roll a d8 and you gain a bonus to either the damage or the heal based upon what you roll on that d8. And when you cast the spell with a range other than self, then the spell can originate from the wildfire spirit. So this is one of those cases where, kind of like the trickster cleric, your spirit can go somewhere, touch somebody, and cast cure wounds through them. It's cool. All right, it's unique. My problem is one, I hate that it's a lack of scaling. I wish that it would have started at a D8 at 6th level, and then I wish that it would go up from there. I wish that I would at least get some form of scaling. At 6th level, adding an extra D8 on a fire damage or a healing spell can definitely be useful. By 13th level, 12th level, even 10th level, a D8 is a D8. It's an average of 4. All of a sudden, that's not so good. All right, at 10th level, Cauterizing Flames. At 10th level, you gain the ability to turn death into magical flames. This is the ability that we're going to talk about. That can heal or incinerate. When a smaller or larger creature dies within 30 feet of you or your wildfire spirit, a harmless spectral flame springs forth in the dead creature's space and flickers there for 1 minute. When a creature you see enters that space, you can use your reaction to extinguish the spectral flame there and either heal the creature or deal fire damage to it. The healing or damage equals 2d10 plus your wisdom modifier. You can use this reaction number of times you get a proficiency bonus, and you regain all uses on a long rest. Okay. What I am imagining is this. You are a cleric. You are a wildfire druid. Very first turn, okay, you summon your wildfire spirit here, right, as an action. On your second turn, you use conjure animals, and you conjure the most you fucking can, which I think is wolves, right? I think the smallest you can go is like CR half, which is like wolves, and I would probably match with my animals. So if I had like a little, I'm getting kind of anime vibes here. I'm not gonna lie, so maybe I get a little fox, or a little fiery fox, on my shoulder, so maybe I would tell the DM like, hey, like they're wolf stats, but for sake of flavor, if I conjure these animals, they're going to be, they're going to look like foxes. So I summon, I think it's like 8. I would summon like 8 of these foxes, right? And these wolf foxes, and they would go out and they would die And that's and that's kind of the expectation. Like, don't get me wrong, I would try to get them to get into, next to the big bad and try to do damage and shit like that. A little pack tactics wouldn't hurt nobody. But their real intention is this ability. As the enemy kills them, they themselves become claymores. They become landmines. And then what I can do is as long as either me or my animal spirit, my wildfire spirit, is somewhere near them, then as a reaction, I can now do an extra 2d10 plus wisdom modifier, which isn't a bad damage. And so you could end up with like 8 landmines around the battlefield that maybe you even turn, if maybe there's a turn where, the barbarian is there or a paladin is there, your fighter is up there fighting the big bad, where maybe they take a lot of damage. Maybe instead of using your reaction that turn to do damage, maybe you heal the fighter or the paladin or the barbarian. It sounds really cool, and I love that. Like, to me, like, that alone, like, I was getting images in my head of that, and I was just like, that is really fucking cool. I love that ability. But you got to read everything, and it's why, for how cool it is, for how much I wanted to love this class, for this ability alone, I'll be honest, there's a couple of things that we have to really see to understand. One is it uses our reaction, which means we can only use it once a turn. So that means on average, if let's say we're fighting in a what I would consider to be a normal battle or at a normal fight, we're talking maybe 4 to 5 rounds. You maybe have 4 to 5 reactions, maybe. And that's, again, you got to keep in mind, if we're summoning our wildfire spirit, then that's our action. So we're not summoning our creatures, our conjure animals, until the next round. So we may only have 2 or 3 reactions in a fight. So this effect isn't going to be used all that often. Secondly, I can only use it at times equal to my proficiency bonus. So that means that, and it's during a long rest, it's all day long. So that means that even if, so let's say that I am, we get this at 10th level, by then our proficiency bonus is 4, pretty sure 3, 4, if not, it's going to be pretty close to getting into 4. That means that on average, we're only going to be, if we're doing multiple combats a day, there's going to be combats I just don't use this, because I'm going to be waiting for that really big, bad, important fight to use this ability. And it's I don't know. I wish that they would have either bumped up, if they're going to throw so many things at us here, such as, hey, it uses your reaction. Hey, this is something you can only use so many times a day. If you're going to give me those kind of restraints, then I should really get a lot of bang for my buck. And I'm finding that 2d10, so an average of about 10 plus your wisdom modifier. So let's go ahead and say, by this point, 10th level, 14, 15 points of damage or 14, 15 points of heal. It's nice. Like, it sounds really, really cool, but the fact that the most I'd be able to do is 4 to 5 times a day, it's definitely not bad, but it's very meh. Hence why this is a B tier ability for me. All right, 14th level, Blazing Revival. The bond with your wildfire spirit can save you from death. If the spirit is within 120 feet of you and you are reduced to 0 hit points and thereby fall unconscious, you can cause the spirit to drop to 0 hit points instead. I wish it wasn't worded like that. I wish it was like your spirit chooses to save your life. It's like, I don't want to die. Here, you die for me. I don't know. I wish they would have worded it differently. You then regain half of your hit points and immediately rise to your feet. Once you use this feature, you can't do so again until you finish a long rest. This is awesome. This is a great capstone ability. Like, this is what capstone abilities for me should be all about. You're using something, your wildfire spirit, you're using something that your class is already known for, already, good at. It's what makes your class the class that it is. And you got a little Phoenix action going. You got a little Phoenix vibe, with the whole coming out of the ashes of your wildfire spirit. It's good. It's solid. And the fact that it gives you half of your hit points when you rise up to your feet, even better. No, this is good. This is a solid ability. I like this ability. Overall, I think it's a really interesting wildfire druid. There's just things where I'm just like, if this would have just gone one step more, I think it would have been better. I wish Enhanced Spawn would have scaling. I wish that Cauterizing Flames wouldn't have so many restrictions, or would have kept the restrictions, but then bumped up the damage or how many times I could use it, or just something. The fact that it's only 2d10 plus your wisdom, which sounds like a lot, but it's really not, especially considering that there's a fucking cleric out there who can use their channel divinity once a short rest and do that kind of damage. I don't know. It's just, it's like every single one of these abilities is like, it's good, but it's not great. Hence why it's B tier, not A tier. Also in B tier, we have the Shepherd Druid. For spells, they have none. They have no extended spell list. Speech of the Woods. At second level, you gain the ability to converse with beasts and many fae. You learn to speak, read, and write Sylvan. Pretty situational. Very situational. Unless maybe you're playing in a, I don't know, Feywild campaign. Or maybe, if you're playing like Wild Beyond the Witchlight, maybe. In addition, beasts can understand your speech and gain the ability to decipher their noises and motions. Most beasts lack the intelligence to convey or understand sophisticated concepts, but friendly beasts can relay what it has seen or heard in recent past. This ability doesn't grant you any special friendship with a beast, though you can combine this ability with gifts to curry favor with them as you would with any non-player character. Very situational, very reliant on a DM who's willing to go out of their way and make sure that there's beasts and creatures for you to interact with. It's okay. It's definitely got the flavor of the Shepherd Druid, but it's very situational. Spirit Totem. At second level, you gain the ability to call forth a nature spirit and use them to influence the world around them. As a bonus action, you can summon one of these incorporeal spirits to a point that you can see within 60 feet of you. The spirit creates an aurora in a 30-foot radius, which is, for a lot of cases, like the entire battle map, so that's always very nice. It counts as neither a creature or object, though it does have a spectral appearance of the creature that it represents, so it can be seen, but it really can't be interacted with. As a bonus action, you can move that spirit up to 60 feet, and the spirit lasts for 1 minute. Once you use this feature, you can't use it again until you finish a short or long rest. The effect of the spirit's aurora depends on the type of the creature that you created. This is a really cool ability. This ability has made me almost go into Shepherd Druid for like my ultimate healer class. I didn't, because there's a better Druid that does, but almost because of the unicorn ability. Alright, anyway. If you summon the spirit in the form of the bear, this bear spirit grants you and your allies its might and endurance. Alright, during this, as long as a creature is in this aurora, when it first appears, they gain temp HP equal to 5 plus your Druid level. It's not a lot, but it could be enough. It could be something that ends up making a difference later. In addition, you and your allies gain advantage on strength checks and strength saving throws while in the aurora. Could come in handy. Situational. Could come in handy. Hawk Spirit. The Hawk Spirit is a consummate hunter, aiding you and your allies with its keen sight. When a creature makes an attack roll against a target in the Spirit's aurora, you can use your reaction to grant advantage to that attack roll. In addition, you and your allies have advantage on wisdom perception checks while in the aurora. This isn't bad. My only problem is that it's one attack, one time, one use, and it is using your reaction to do so. Again, druids generally are not too bonus or too reaction heavy, so you probably do have a reaction to spare. But one single roll of advantage for your reaction and for you, for this to have been what you did on a turn, bonus action, choose this creature, send it somewhere, do something, kind of lackluster. All right, last one, Unicorn Spirit. The Unicorn Spirit lends its protection to those nearby. You and your allies gain advantage on all ability checks made to detect creatures in the Spirit's aurora. In addition, if you cast a spell using a spell slot that restores hit points, then each creature of your choice in the aurora also regains hit points equal to your Druid level. This is what's cool. This is the nice ability. This is the one you will probably be spending out in most combats. Just this really nice, hey, I am the dedicated party healer. From now on, if I cast heal on this person, then anyone who is within 30 feet of me or 30 feet of this spirit, they all get temp HP, or they all regain hit points equal to my Druid level. This is especially good, and it scales, and naturally scales as the game goes on. Great ability. Fantastic. All right, 6th level, Mighty Summoner. Beasts and Fae that you conjure are more resilient than normal. Any beast or Fae summoned gain 2 benefits. The creature appears with more hit points, 2 extra hit points per hit die it has. The damage from its natural weapons is considered magical for the purpose of overcoming immunity and resistance to non-magical attacks and damage. This magic is considered magical. The damage is considered magical. That might be effective. there might come, you might be fighting enemies, like wraiths and ghosts and spectral creatures that, or larger, kind of, mini bosses out there, that your DM cooks up that might be, resistant to non-magical damage. But the fact that these beasts, like, again, most of the time, especially at 6th level, like, you're not really summoning all that much. And what you do summon is probably going to be like, 1d6 plus 2, 2d4 plus 1. Like, so it's just, it's not going to be a lot of damage. So I guess it just makes it so that, hey, instead of it being shitty damage, it's mediocre. So the health is nice, though. I will say the health has come in clutch. When I first did this, I was in a one-shot not too long ago in which I played a Shepherd Druid. And my intention was to basically just like Pokemon trainer. Like I'm just going to create as many conjuring things as I possibly can. And so this was the one I picked for my Druid class. And I thought the second part was going to be the most beneficial, but it actually wasn't. It was the hit points. You would be surprised of how many monsters actually have 3, 4, 5 hit die making up their health pool, which means that with this, they get an extra 10 hit points, which is usually 1 or 2 extra hits that they get to tank that your party isn't having to deal with. So this is actually, it's a nice ability. All right, Guardian Spirit. At 10th level, your spirit totem safeguards the beasts and fae that you call forth. When a beast or fae that you summoned or created with a spell ends its turn in your spirit totem aurora, that creature regains a number of hit points equal to half your druid level. Not bad. And again, especially since, by the time you're 10th level, that means that, the least you can do is heal them by 5. And this scales the more that you go up. Granted, it takes two levels for it to increase, but still, not horrible. But it's kind of forcing you to go down a very particular playstyle. Like, basically, you are a summoner. That is your druid type. But it's cool. I like it. Alright, lastly, Capstone. Faithful Summon. Starting at 14th level, the nature spirits you commune with protect you when you are at your most defenseless. If you are reduced to 0 hit points and are thereby incapacitated against your will, you can immediately gain the benefits of Conjure Animals as if it were cast with a 9th level spell slot. Holy fucking shit. It summons 4 beasts of your choice that are challenging rating 2 or lower. The conjured beasts appear within 20 feet of you. If they receive no commands from you, because you're dead right now, you're incapacitated, they protect you from harm and attack your foes. The spell lasts for 1 hour, requiring no concentration, or until you dismiss it. Once you use this feature, you can't use it again until you finish a long rest. It feels like this and the wild. It feels like Tasha's basically just said, hey, what is something that we can do to help the druids out when they drop to 0? Because the Wildfire Druid also did something when they dropped to 0. And so does this one. This is cool. This is a cool ability. It fits with the with the theme of what this druid is. My problem is that it is only happening when you are reduced to 0 hit points. Depending on who your DM is, they may tell you that, hey, this counts as a spell being cast. Now, it does say it summons it as if it were cast with a 9th level spell slot, which maybe, your DM is like, yep, nope, that is different than your ordinary 9th level spells once you unlock them. But I don't know. This is one of those cases where it's it's really cool and the theme is nice, but judging, I personally, I don't like abilities that say, yeah, when you drop to 0 hit points, this is what happens. Because to me, when we start dropping to 0, then that means that things have gone wrong. My goal is to not drop to 0. My goal is to try to stay alive. If you gave me 2 choices, one in which helps me stay conscious versus one that says, hey, this activates when you die, I take the first one instantly. Because that's something I can use. That's something I can choose when it happens, so I get more kind of creative ability. I get more choice. This is hey, here's an ability if you ever drop to 0, which maybe, who knows, maybe this is something maybe you use twice the whole campaign. Maybe you just aren't the player who goes down often. You're the druid after all, you should be in the back. How often are you constantly being dropped to 0? I don't know. Like I said, I like what they were trying to do. It's an interesting idea, but, for a capstone, not so much. Not a big fan. So overall, it's a cool concept. I like this druid a lot, but it's B tier. A lot of the stuff is situational. Your 2nd level is situational. Capstone situational. Your 6th and your 10th is basically guaranteeing that if you go in with the concept of I'm going to conjure animals and that is how I'm going to go into combat, then this is a fantastic druid. Fantastic. But again, that's what makes my B tier B tier. It means that it's a subclass that's really good situationally. In this case, the situation is you going in and choosing to be a conjurer. But as soon as if you ever wanted to kind of bank out of that, if you ever wanted to kind of explore like, oh, maybe I just want to do some damage, maybe I want to try different spells, then all of a sudden all of these abilities don't help you. That is why it is in my B tier. All right, I think we're ending our B tier here with the Druid of the Land, the Circle of the Land Druid, the one that comes right out of the player's handbook. First off, bonus cantrip. When you choose this circle at 2nd level, you learn an additional Druid cantrip of your choice. This cantrip doesn't count against the ones that you know. Also, 2nd level, you get Natural Recovery. This is, I think, the only circle that actually gives you an ability to regain spell slots, which is, as someone who is in campaigns in which our DM does 3 or 4 combats in a session, to be able to regain anything is very nice. So during a short rest, you regain spell slots depending on your druid level, very much like how the wizard gets to do theirs. So pretty cool. I like it. It's nice. Circle spells. You also get this starting at 2nd level and then get it at 1st, 3rd, 5th, 7th, 9th. The list was too damn long. I wasn't going to dedicate an entire slide to it. So just depending on the circle, depending on which land you come from, gives you unique spell slots or unique spells. Some of them are very nice. Some of them are not, and it sucks, but there's definitely some lands that I would be coming from every single time I played, because just some of them are just way better than others. All right, 6th level. Moving through non-magical difficult terrain costs you no extra movement. You can also pass through non-magical plants without being slowed by them and without taking damage from them if they have thorns, spines, or similar hazard. So basically, spike growth does nothing to you. In addition, you have advantage on saving throws against plants that are magically created or manipulated to impede movement, such as those created by the Entangle spell. If this isn't the definition of situational, I don't know what is. If you were playing in, say, a desert campaign, then this ability is pointless. Just flat out. All right, Nature's Ward. When you reach 10th level, you can't be charmed or frightened by elements or fey, and you are immune to poison and disease. Or play an elf, and you won't be charmed, especially considering that these are very specific, by elementals or fey. So that means anyone else can still do it. I don't know. This is player's handbook. Like, I swear there are subclasses, like, you can just read it and be like, yeah, that must have come from the player's handbook, because it feels like they were really reaching for things to give to this class. And that's exactly what this is. I guess the fact that you're immune to poison and disease is nice, but eh. Alright, 14th level, Nature's Sanctuary. Creatures of the natural world sense your connection to nature and become hesitant to attack you. When a beast or plant creature attacks you, that creature must make a wisdom saving throw against your DC. On a failed save, the creature must choose a different target, or the attack automatically misses. On a successful save, the creature is immune to this effect for 24 hours. Again, highly, highly situational. By 14th level, how many beasts and plants are you coming across? Unless you're playing a campaign which your DM said, yeah, we are playing a campaign completely dedicated in a forest. 80% of the shit you're fighting is going to be beasts or some kind of magically created plants, awakened plants of some kind. Like, it's situational. It's decent, the fact that it's like, hey, if you try to hit me, Mr., big dire wolfy boy, you're going to have to make a save or completely avoid me. It's okay, but it's so situational. And again, the fact that, you could be in certain settings, like, imagine if you were playing, say, Waterdeep. Like, you're never going to this would be such a bad druid to pick, which, again, is why it's in B tier. There are too many situational things going on. And the creature is aware of this effect before it makes its attack against you. So it even spells out that, hey, the DM, they get to make the choice. The DM gets to go, hey, I'm controlling this big, alpha dire wolf. And because I know that it's going to have to make a save to hit you or not, I'm going to choose to make it attack somebody else. situational. It is your vanilla druid. This is the druid that they just kind of mixed matched little bits and pieces, and we're like, oh, what's a druid? It's people that are, super friendly to plants and animals. Okay, sounds good. Let's make it all about that. It's not bad. I'm not going to say it's bad. All I'm saying is that this is very, very situational, hence B tier. And with that, we will end the video, part 1 of the Druid tier list video here. I hope to see you in part 2, where we will go into tier A and, of course, tier S. So hope you enjoyed it. Hope that, for what it is worth, my 2 cents was at the very least kind of entertaining. But whatever the case, I will catch you next time.